So we had just finished up talking about the sources of stress. We talked about things in our environment, relationships, jobs, college, daily hassles. And so now what we want to talk about is we really want to talk about um, what are some things we can do to help manage our stress or to reduce our stress levels so that our body can go back to homeostasis and we don't have to have, you know, big issues with stress. We're going to have stress throughout our lives. That's not something we're going to be able to avoid. But what are some things we can do to help reduce how much it affects us, or um, what are some things we can do to help get rid of it, and different ways that we can manage this stress? And so these are good tactics throughout our entire lives, and especially in college, you can figure out what works best for you. So, with that being said, what do you guys think are some um, what do you think are some ways that we can manage stress? What are some good ways to manage stress? What do you guys think?
Exercising, meditating.
Yeah, we've got
Um,
exercising, we've got meditating.
if it's possible, therapy, if it's that
Say that again.
it's possible, see a therapist.
Oh yeah, see a therapist. Yeah, that could be helpful. So there are lots and lots of ways that we can um, look at managing or dealing with stress. There are lots of things. Some are more simple than others. Some are things we do on our own. Some are things we do with others. And so there's a wide variety. And we're gonna not look at an extensive list of everything you can possibly do, but just give you some ideas of some of the ways that people really kind of commonly deal with stress. And so the first one that someone had mentioned was actually exercise. And so exercise is actually a really, really good way to manage stress for several different reasons. First of all, it may be confusing that exercise is a good way to deal with stress because exercise is a stress. We talked about that last time, of the fact that exercise is a stress, that your body suffers the same stress response when you exercise as if you're stressing out about an exam. So how is it good to help manage stress? Well, when you exercise for a short period of time, and when that exercise is over, your body goes back to homeostasis. So when you exercise, you teach your body how to go back to rest, how to go back to this homeostasis and come out of this stress response. And that's really a good thing. It's kind of teaching the body how to reset itself and get back there. Also, with exercise, it wears you out. It makes you tired. And so this sometimes makes it where you're so tired, your body just can't fight that stress anymore and allows it to go back to homeostasis. For some people during exercise, especially if it's done by themselves, some people love to run because it helps them to think through things and think through their stresses and be able to process them to be able to get rid of them. And so we know exercise is really, really good at helping to reduce stress for many different reasons. Another thing you can do is nutrition, making sure you're eating correctly or making sure you're getting all of your nutrients, so vitamins, minerals, macronutrients, those types of things. If your body is short or has too much of some of our vitamins and minerals, it can make stress worse. It can make it where that response is exaggerated. It can make it harder for our body to go back to homeostasis because there's a physical stress on there from not having those. So making sure we're eating right is a great way to help manage stress. um, some of you guys may have, I think, usually around the holidays, we all tend to go to all different kinds of things and eat all different kinds of foods, and typically not ones that are quite as good for us as they may other times of year. And so some people during the holiday season are stressed about it, but it's also they're not eating right. Maybe they're running around and not eating, getting as many vitamins and minerals. And so you've probably had a time where you've eaten bad for a couple of days or a week, and you just feel like everything's driving you crazy. It could be the fact that you're having a small deficiency on some of those things. Um, we also have sleep. Sleep is a great way to help reduce stress. Sleep, when you go to sleep, your body is repairing itself and healing. It is kind of like a reset button on the brain as well, because your brain is being healed and kind of resetting. And so a good night's sleep can really help manage stress. Um, if you've ever had a day that's just very stressful, something that's on your mind, maybe you're thinking about a lot, and then you go to bed that night and you wake up in the morning, that problem just isn't as big as it used to be. Well, a lot of times um, uh, that sleep has helped reduce that stress, even though nothing has changed. It's the same problem, the same things going on. You're just looking at it in a different way because of that sleep that you've gotten. And so sleep is a really good thing to help with stress. Um, do be aware that getting a bad night's sleep can make it hard to deal with stresses, or can even add stress to your life. One common problem, or one common reason for people not to sleep well at night, could be could be something called sleep apnea. And sleep apnea is where, when you fall asleep, you have trouble breathing or may stop breathing altogether. Um, this is there are several things that can lead to this. Part of it could be the way your throat and everything is designed. But typically what we see is one of the biggest causes of sleep apnea is having too much body weight for our height. It puts some excess pressure on our throat and some other things, and it may make it hard to breathe while you're sleeping. Um, and so this causes you not to get a good night's sleep. So think about if, when you laid down tonight in your bed, you start to doze off. And we all have that time where we start to fall asleep, and we've kind of started to sleep, but we're not in a deep sleep. We're easily woken up. And so imagine if, right as you started to fall asleep, and I said your name and you didn't wake up, but I walked over to you and kind of held your nose shut and held your mouth shut where you couldn't breathe. Well, your body would kind of jump up trying to get your breath, and you wouldn't fully wake up. You wouldn't even know this happened, but your body would kind of jump up and take a breath and realize everything's okay and go back to sleep. And imagine if I did that every 10 to 15 minutes throughout the entire night. You would wake up and think that you slept for 8, 9 hours, but you would feel really exhausted. And this would be because of this sleep apnea making it hard to breathe at night. Sleep apnea can and has killed people. They literally stop breathing in the middle of the night. So it is something you want to be somewhat concerned about. And if you're not getting a good night's sleep, I do encourage you um, to maybe talk with your doctor, and they can do a sleep study where they monitor your sleep for one evening and just kind of see if you have this. And it's a very simple solution. If you do have sleep apnea, they simply give you a little machine that helps you breathe at night. So these are things to kind of look at and consider. Other things when it comes to managing stress is social support. So this is somebody or a group of people that just support you in things. Kind of think of someone who has your back. A lot of times they may kind of talk about, and you may think that they're always on your side. Good social support is usually on your side, but they're willing to talk you down, or say like, maybe you were in the wrong on this one. Good social support, people you trust. Um, One way to think about social support is, um, this happens in all kinds of people. I just tend to see it happen in females more often than not. Um, and I've been on the opposite end of these phone calls as well, so I have some experience here seeing this. But the social support of females and males as well. But have you ever had that day where it's just a terrible day, like stressful day? Everything tends to be going wrong. There are things that are driving you nuts. Um, and so let's say it's at work. And so you get done with your shift at work. And what I've seen, and I've known females that do this all the time, is that stressful day at work, they get off, and on their car ride home, they have that one person they call. Maybe you have that one person that calls, or that one person that calls you. And as soon as you answer that phone, like I've been on it and I answer the phone, and it's just going off. That person's just ranting and raving, saying, "You won't believe what happened today. You didn't even get to say hello. You just opened the phone, and like, you won't believe," and just go on and talk about all these things. He did this and this happened and blah, blah, blah. And it's just going. And so that person is simply talking about what's going on. And the person on the other end of the line is, if you got that good social support system, is like, "They did what? That is ridiculous. That's crazy. Oh, do you want us to slash their tires? We'll burn their house down." Just that kind of playing on this, and just kind of letting them know that they're heard, and what they're going through isn't great. And so this may go on for 10, 15, 20 minutes of that person really just monopolizing the conversation, which is okay. And at the end of it, they're saying, "Well, do we need to do something, or you feel okay?" And that person on the other end of the line is usually like, "You know what? Thanks for listening. That helped me just to get that out." That social support of knowing someone's there to support you and will do whatever. Um, uh, but even though it's not needed, you just were able to work through that, having that support system. And that good social support system says, sometimes we'll call them out and be like, "Look, I know that stressed you out, but you know, was that something to actually stress out about, or are we overreacting?" And sometimes that's the case. And so part of this social support is also good communication skills. Communication is key with everything. A lot of stress in people's lives is simply due to a miscommunication. it wasn't communication that was absolutely terrible. It was just um, communication that didn't go as well as we think it should have, or didn't go the way we thought it should have. And sometimes it's simply because things were misinterpreted. Communication is about the message, like me talking to you guys. Communication is about the message I send out, but it's also about how is that message received. um, you may have been in a situation, I know I have at work or other things, where um, communication was given and they said one thing, but I interpreted it in the wrong way. So maybe they were trying to give me something and to do, and thought it would be a good thing, but I took it as kind of an insult, something where they gave me this assignment because they didn't think I could do something else or other things. And so having that communication, being able to voice those things in a reasonable and calm way, can help those things out. And so communicating, and this applies to your professors at school. There's been many times where I'll communicate an assignment, I think, pretty clearly. It makes sense to me. And then eventually students come up and say, kind of talk about it. And we realize that what I was trying to get across was not what I got across. And so that communication was there, and it caused a lot of stress from them. And so we needed to resolve that. And so it's completely understandable. And so part of that communication is also conflict resolution. A lot of times from that communication, there may arise conflict of this person doesn't like me, or various other things. And so with that, you have to learn how to deal with conflict in an appropriate manner. This doesn't mean punching someone in the face, or hitting them with your car. It means talking with them and figuring out a solution that may not always be the solution you want. It may not be always the solution they want, but coming to an agreement in some way of maybe what works best for both people, or a compromise. Or sometimes the conflict is simply um, saying, you know what, you've voiced your opinion, you've voiced your concerns about whatever it is, and maybe that person's in charge, and you simply have to deal with whatever that is, and move on, or make a big change. But don't sit there and let those things fester, and just think about them. Approach them and see if there's ways that they can be dealt with. These can help alleviate a lot of stress. We also have spiritual wellness. Spiritual wellness is a good way to help deal with stress. What do you think we mean by spiritual wellness? How does spiritual wellness help with stress?
Um, like, what do you mean? Like, religious?
So it could be. So remember spiritual wellness all the way back from the beginning of the course, right? And what that meant. What would be an example of something that is kind of about spiritual wellness that maybe helps alleviate stress? So it could be spiritual, or it could be religious. Sorry, that was the word you used.
I mean, sometimes, like, uh, clearing out your space from clutter, it could help you spiritually.
Okay, so just cleaning out things we don't need in our lives, that could possibly help a little bit spiritually. Sure. Anything else you guys can think of? So typically, a lot of people in this particular scenario think maybe about prayer as a way. When you think spiritual wellness, thinking about religions, it could be praying to a deity or a god of some sort. Um, and typically, when this is happening, you're taking the things that you can't control, the things that are stressing you out, and putting it in a higher authority's hands, like God or Jesus or Allah or Muhammad or something along those lines. And you're putting it there. You're basically giving your things that you can't control to something else, and knowing that they'll all work out okay. Just because you're not religious, it could be other ways to do this. Could be that clearing your life of clutter, clearing the things you don't need, so you can focus on the things that are important. It could be meditation, so simply just thinking about these things as you go through them, and realizing that you don't have full control. There are things out of your control, and so I'm not going to worry about those particular things. But for people that are religious, spiritual wellness can be the best way to alleviate stress, because you're putting it in someone else's hands that knows more and has more power than what you feel like you do. And so that's there. Some people find journaling to be a great practice, or keeping a diary, writing down. It could be multiple times a day, or a once a day basis, or um, could be even less than that. Could be a weekly type of thing. Some people love to just be able to write down what's going on, and it helps them to process and see get clarity in the situation and put their feelings down, and then be able to look at how they can approach that problem. Um, what most of these things in managing stress are helping us do is to lower the stress levels down, and then helping us to figure out how do we move forward with this problem, or is this a problem that I should even have concerns about? Because sometimes not. Journaling or keeping a diary works great for some people. I know plenty of people that keep them and love to keep them. Journaling stresses me out. I don't like to write all that much. And so if I kept a journal, I've tried before, it's just super stressful and I just want to get it done. So I'll go in there and be like, today was fine, and move on. And it doesn't do me any good. And so there are things that I have to look at. What works for me and what works for you are going to be different. There are other ways we can manage stress as well. We have time management. Time management is a big thing. Many college students um, don't feel like they have enough time. And so one of the things you're going to learn in college is how to manage your time, that you're going to have to give up some things to be able to accomplish your goals. And managing time is one of the best things you'll learn in college. I know for me, I learned to manage my time. My goal in college was to get out as quickly as I possibly could. So I took a whole lot of classes every semester just trying to finish. And because I was taking, there were a couple of semesters of like 8 classes a semester. You really had to kind of learn how to manage your time. So at the beginning of a semester, in college, I tended to do a lot of the work that was assigned at the beginning. Some of those papers that you had, a couple months to work on, I would get them done the first couple of weeks, because there's not a lot that goes on in that first couple of weeks of college. And knowing that I had to do it then, because if I didn't, there was no way I could finish all the coursework that was required and study the way I should have. And so that applies in today's life. I have to, when it comes to time management, if there's something I want to do, there's usually something I have to give up. So maybe if there's something I want to watch on TV, there's some kind of project I have to give up on at home, or at least push off. If there's a certain project that I need to get completed in a certain amount of time, well, cool. I'm going to have to reduce, maybe saying no to a couple of activities with friends because I have to get them done. Um, a lot of times for college students, they think they don't have enough time. And if we truly dug down and looked at kind of where they spend their time, we realize that they have more time than they think they actually do. So a good way to do this is typically with your phone. Your phone is kind of a big place where a lot of college students' time actually goes, and a lot of adults as well. And so one way I encourage you to do that is, you can find this on pretty much any phone. I know how to do it on an iPhone, probably the easiest, but on Androids, you can find it the same way. I know that Apple has an app that kind of sends you an update. I think it's every Sunday kind of morning about your screen time and all this, which is great. But to me, doesn't do quite as much as if you go into your iPhone and you click settings. And then in the settings, look for the one that says battery. Like scroll down a little bit, you'll see it where it says battery, and click on your battery icon. And then from there, it'll show you kind of what percentage of your battery is and some power saving settings. But if you scroll down just a little bit after you click that battery, what it'll do is it'll show you how much time of your battery has been used on certain apps. It'll literally say this app was used for this amount of time on the last kind of 24 hours. And so this is a really good way, or at least percentage of battery usage is more how it does it. It'll say in the last 24 hours you've used 25% of your battery on this app, and you can see it'll also tell you how many hours you were on your phone. And so one example of this, I had a student kind of look at this, and they kind of were willing to share in class. They looked at it and they said in the last 24-hour period, they had been on their phone for 9 hours. Now, this was before all the coronavirus stuff happened, but they were on their phone for 9 hours for the last 24. I said, cool. That's about average. I see for a lot of college students is somewhere between 6 and 9 hours. And I said, all right, so scroll down a little bit. What's the number one used app? And he said it was, for him, Instagram. I was like, no surprise. And I said, what percentage of your battery life was used for Instagram? And he said something like 30%. So what that means is in the last 24 hours, he spent almost 3 hours on Instagram. And so what we see is when we start evaluating things like this, we could have easily gotten him in his last 24 hours 2 to 3 hours back if we just reduced our Instagram use. And so these are ways we have to learn how to to figure out what's taking our time, and then evaluate what's most important to us. What do we think we need to do more? Um, so that's one way. You can also do cognitive thinking, which is just kind of thinking through your problems. Um, Again, it's very similar to journaling and that social support. You're just more thinking through things. A lot of people do this when they exercise, of this thinking, what's the worst thing that can happen if this goes wrong, or what are some appropriate ways I can deal with it, or what could happen if I talk to my boss about an issue that I'm having, when as it comes to managing stress. So we have these techniques, but then we also have techniques that can help us physically relax. So we know that if we can teach the body to relax, to physically kind of relax and let go of things, that it can help manage our stress. It can help our body go back to homeostasis. And so several things that we know that can help us manage stress by helping our bodies to relax would be things like progressive relaxation. And progressive relaxation is kind of, think about taking and using your muscles one at a time. So if you're sitting there watching this video, or maybe you're driving, or maybe you're exercising, whatever, the way progressive relaxation works is you kind of start down at your feet and you work your way up, and you just contract every muscle in your body one at a time. So right now, as you're sitting there, you can curl your toes in your shoe, like literally try to make your feet into a fist, and you're going to try to just curl those toes as hard as you possibly can, kind of activating the muscles on the bottom of your feet. You're going to hold that really, really tight, and then you're going to let that relax. Now I want you to do the same thing with your calves. I want you to take your calves and just contract your calves as hard as possible. You're not going to move. You're just simply pushing down and trying to straighten your toes, your feet out, but you can't. And then you're going to relax. You'll do the same thing for the top of your leg, and then you'll relax, and then you'll do like your butt muscles. You'll clench those together really, really tight, and then just let them relax. And you'll do this progressively over the course of your whole body. And what this is a lot like exercise, but it tenses your muscles up, and then you relax them, and it teaches these muscles to relax more and more. With what we just did, if you did it appropriately, you probably notice your legs maybe feel a little bit lighter than they did before we started, because we've taught them to relax and let go of the tension, which can help us manage stress because it's releasing chemicals into our body, which help with this stress response. We also have visualization, which we've talked about this semester. Visualization is not only seeing yourself being successful at something, but it's picturing the entire process. So picturing, let's say it's an exam you're stressed out about, picturing yourself sitting down to that exam, reading the questions. And when you read the questions, you know what that question is, and you know what the answer is. And so when you read all the multiple choices, you immediately know the answer, and you circle that. And basically, you kind of visualize yourself going through the whole exam and turning that exam in, and feeling good about it, and then getting that exam back and it being, a 99. No one's perfect, but a 99 is pretty good. And so this may be a way to visualize that, and it helps you to be more successful and helps to lower that stress because you're seeing yourself being confident in that. Taking a deep breath is another great way to actually relax. If you've ever noticed, anytime before you do something big in your life, maybe if you've ever skydived or went ziplining, or maybe you were getting ready to make a big purchase, or the first time you walked into college or another school, most of the time before you do that, you will see people with big things in their lives. Maybe before they go on stage to give some kind of talk to people, you'll see them take a big breath in, hold it for a second, and then take that breath out. Well, that deep breathing manages stress. It actually helps to relax our bodies and let that stress not affect us as much. And so actually breathing deep several times can help manage that. And then we also have music. We also have music that can help us to relax. Most of you have music that you listen to and you get stressed out, and maybe you have a specific song, or maybe a specific genre. And so that's really good. Music can be relaxing. There's a reason that so many people love listening to music at certain times. It does actually change kind of our emotions, and so music can be relaxing. Realize this goes across genre. There's all kinds of genres, or every genre has songs that can be relaxing in it. And scientists looked and saw that some songs tended to be more relaxing than others. They would ask people and kind of to evaluate songs, and some would show that more relaxing. People would listen to them and say, yeah, I feel less stressed listening to this song versus this one. And over time, they figured out what makes a song relaxing. And so what we have is we have actually this link right here in YouTube. You can click that. You can kind of look at that link. It takes you to the world's most relaxing song. It literally takes you to the world's most relaxing song, proven by science. Now, it's not something you're going to go and like, listen to at a club or anything, but it's there, and it helps you to relax. It helps you to de-stress, and it's been made that way. And so I encourage you to listen to this. Just listen to the clip. You don't have to listen to the whole thing, but listen to 3 or 4 minutes of it, and just kind of close your eyes and just play it in a room where you don't have anything going on, and you'll feel yourself kind of relaxing and less stressed. It helps to lower your heart rate. It helps you to actually breathe deeper in this song, and is just really relaxing. And so I'd encourage you to do that. Um, there are plenty of other things out there. There are all kinds of ways that we can manage stress out there. There are social support groups out there that help. There are maybe you have an activity that helps you to alleviate stress. I know for some people, they may have a certain activity like a sport or cutting grass or doing gardening, something that just helps them to kind of cognitively think about and work through things in their lives. The biggest thing when it comes to stress is having something that helps us reduce that stress response and helps us to move forward with whatever that problem is. We don't simply want to have something that makes us think that problem is gone when we've done nothing to alleviate that. There are also biofeedback devices, so things that may monitor your heart rate or sweat rate and alert you to when you have a stress response on your phone. And so there are many, many ways to manage stress. The biggest thing we have to realize is that managing stress is not using alcohol and drinking. It is not using tobacco products or other drugs like heroin or crack. It's not eating, even. All of these things, so alcohol, tobacco, drugs, and eating, people tend to think these things help them de-stress. People always talk about, oh, I had a stressful day at work, I'm going to have a drink, I'm going to have a beer, whatever. This is not actually ways to manage stress. All they do is simply cover up that stress. They don't help you tackle it. They make you think that stress response has gone away, but it's still there. Um, and so whenever these things wear off, the food, the drugs, the alcohol wear off, that problem is still there. And actually, it's usually even worse than it was because you just simply ignored it, and didn't do it. It just simply was able to grow on its own and wasn't there any longer. And so we don't want to deal with these things that way because they actually make it worse. Think about alcohol. If you drink a lot, that problem doesn't go away. You just forgot about the problem for a short period of time. Still there when you sober up. And when you consume these things, especially if you have a lot of stress and you consume more and more of them, you're very likely to make a poor choice and cause more stress in your life. Think about if you got a DUI. A DUI is going to cause a whole lot more stress in your life. Than if you didn't do that at all. And so we definitely want to avoid these things, not dealing with stress in those ways. So finally, what we want to talk about is sometimes you need help when it comes to stress. Stress is something we can deal with on our own, but stress can hit some very high levels, and depending on what's going on in your life, can be something that can be very difficult to manage on your own or almost impossible. And so we do have other things out there. Sometimes there's peer counseling. So it could be kind of think social support, but there's someone who's a little bit more trained to just kind of talks you through that stress and maybe helps you come up with ways to deal with that stress. And how do we kind of ignore some of those things and let them go? There are groups out there, kind of like think Alcoholics Anonymous, but that deal with stress. It's a group of people that get together and talk about the stresses in their life and maybe how they can deal with them. And then there are plenty of people out there who need professional help. They need maybe a therapist or a psychiatrist or a professional counselor or a psychologist. All these are different people that work on kind of work with the mind and kind of help people through things in different ways than like traditional medicine doctors. And these are very much needed, especially with people who have had stress for a long period of time or had very large amounts of stress, or maybe just was never taught how to manage stress on their own, and it became to a point where it's just not something they can deal with their own. And typically, these particular things come with other problems as well, other things that need to be dealt with. So we know that if you are stressed for an extended period of time or have high amounts of stress, um, that this can lead to depression. And depression is a feeling of hopelessness, a feeling of not being able to be content and happy with what's going on. Depression is something that we have some control over. There are things that we could have done or decisions we could have made to maybe prevent depression. But once depression happens, it's not something we have control over, because depression is a change in the chemistry in your brain. The chemicals in your brain literally change during depression and make it hard to feel happy and joyful. And once this happens, we cannot control very easily the chemicals in our brain. You can't sit here, and one chemical is called dopamine. You can't say, "Oh, I need more dopamine today," and just kind of think real hard, and your body's going to release dopamine. It's not going to happen. And so you need some help with this, to be able to think in a different way that will help build dopamine over time. But also, most people with depression need some type of um, uh, drug that helps get their brain chemistry right, or some kind of treatment. My father-in-law has a treatment for some depression. It's a little bit different. They actually manipulate his brain a little bit. It's a weird kind of treatment, but it works. It helps. And so these are things that have to be looked at. You can't will yourself out of depression. So it's something that people don't want to talk about. But if you think you're depressed, talk to your doctor. Come ask me, and we can get you to the right resources that can help you deal with this, because it's not something you can deal with on your own. And more people have it than you would ever dream. These also could lead to suicidal thoughts, so thinking about killing yourself. And this is not something you want to deal with on your own. You do want to talk to a professional, because that's something you need to look at why, and figure out that, hey, you are cared for, you are loved, and someone's going to miss you if you choose to do that, which most people that commit suicide don't think so. We also may need to deal with drug issues, because people may have self treated their stress and other things with alcohol, tobacco, drugs, eating, so addiction issues. And also, there are other psychological problems like PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder. So, if something really stressful happens, it can really change the way our mind is working and how it's acting. And so, don't be afraid. Don't feel like it's just you. If you ever need help with these things, it happens, and we're trying to teach you guys how to not get to these points. But if it ever does, there's no shame in that, and there are plenty of people out there willing to help. So this kind of finishes up um, our stress chapter.